Most football fans will remember the name Bebe, especially Manchester United fans. However, not too many people seem to be familiar with the whole story, and it's Bebe's life prior to his move to Old Trafford which makes his tale so interesting. It's a story of a player who, against all the odds, managed to get a shot at the top level. However, it also involves homelessness, conspiracy, betrayal, and of course Jorge Mendes. But before I get into this, if you are a fan of retro jerseys like me, or even the new season jerseys, and go over to Jersey FIFA, you can check out all their retro jerseys. They have Manchester United ones, going all the way back to the early 90s, as well as some jerseys with iconic players' names on the back as well. The link will be in my Instagram bio, which I will leave linked in the description, and if you use code Atlantis at checkout, you should also get a discount as well. You can also subscribe to my channel where I do put out unreleased videos, as well as some other content as well. But if not, just subscribe to the channel and click the bell for notifications so you do get notified when my videos come out. Sir Alex Ferguson is a genius, we already know this to be true. He's won the lot multiple times over, rebuilt multiple world-class squads, and replanted Manchester United back as the biggest club in world football. He's knack for developing young players, nurturing new signings, and identifying who will and who will not ultimately make it at the highest level, has been eulogised over and over again throughout the last decade, and yet he didn't always get it right. And one of his most egregious errors, arguably, in an illustrious transfer CV, has to be Bebe. Sir Alex Ferguson would often prioritise players' character over those with more skills and sometimes more talent. If it was character he was after when he signed Bebe, then his background certainly pointed to a man with bags of it. Born Thiago Manuel Diaz Carrera to parents from Cape Verde, his impoverished parents had to orphan him off, then his grandmother struggled to cope with life in a derelict suburb of Lisbon and lost him to a court order at the age of 12. He had no formal schooling, and suddenly he was dropped into a shelter designed to be for no more than 2 weeks according to his grandmother, but quickly it ballooned into 8 years. At the shelter is where Bebe developed his love for sport, and where his proficiency for football in particular blossomed. Suddenly backboned by education and the discipline that swiftly followed, Bebe had a path to become something greater than his past. Interspersed with the street football that became his foundations, Bebe turned out for his local amateur team, Lorez. They turned out to be the best days of his life according to the man himself. It was whilst playing for Lorez that he was selected to play in the second ever European Street Football Festival in Bosnia, where he represented Portugal. His skill level was far greater than that of the competition, and his stature only ballooned when he was asked to participate in the Homeless World Cup in Milan later that year. And this is where the misconception came that Bebe was somehow plucked from homelessness and straight into Manchester United. In truth, he didn't attend, as he would have been taking up a spot for a previously selected member of the Portuguese homeless team. In the end, his break came in third tier Portuguese outfit, Estrela de Amadora. It was just about close enough, a 2-hour bus ride, and so Bebe didn't have to move out of the orphanage that still served as his home. Third tier semi-professional was his entry point, playing on the wing or up front as Estrela's key player, and soon he was bundled into a relationship with football agent Gonzalo Reyes. When Estrela could no longer afford his wages, Reyes got him a move to Vitória de Guimarães, which at the time was an enormous leap into the world of professional football, at a team who had finished in the top 6 of the Portuguese First Division. But his talent didn't waver, and his impressive performances throughout pre-season hurried the club along to treble his release clause, receiving a fresh contract mere weeks after signing his first. Now 20 years old, Bebe had certainly taken a harder route to the top compared to other academy-fed talents at his nation's biggest clubs in Porto and Benfica. Yet despite not playing a competitive professional game, rumours were circulating that the player labelled as a young prodigy was destined for Real Madrid, and so it was only a matter of time before Bebe's reputation would outgrow his agents, who to be fair had picked him up from the canvas of the third division and showcased him to the eyes of Europe. Enter Jorge Mendes. At the time, Mendes' monumental big agency Geste Foot was allowed to run absolutely rampant in Portugal owing to their rules that signed off on third-party ownership. Jorge Mendes would become the middleman in Bebe's eventual transfer to the higher echelons of football. Just 5 weeks after Reyes had participated in Bebe's transfer from obscurity to the top flight of Portuguese football, contact was severed. Bebe wrote to Reyes arguing that his Vitória contract favoured his former agent in a biased manner, and thus informed him of the decision to change agents, whilst at the same time announcing a dramatic transfer not to Real Madrid but to Manchester United. A matter of days separated Bebe's signing with Mendes' firm and the activation of his €9 million release clause. Sir Alex Ferguson famously admitted to not even seeing Bebe play before signing him in 2010. This, combined with the fact that he'd signed 3 Mendes players from Portugal in Cristiano Ronaldo, Anderson and Nani, only added to the conspiracy in Reyes' eyes. If anything, Mendes' healthy 40% fee of the €9 million transfer made days after acquiring Bebe's rights for just £100,000 was enough to arouse suspicion of the shady transfer, as did the enormous £17,000 per week wages and £500,000 signing on fee. And if that didn't, when it came down to Bebe actually playing some football in Manchester, the suspicion was only ratcheted up by his performances. For an Iberian street footballer with an immense inventory of skill, he debuted in the worst possible surroundings, in an early annual Evenings League Cup fixture away to Scunthorpe. His first act was to nearly knock the football out of the stadium, and it proved a sign of things to come. 334 was a tally, not of matches for the club, but just minutes, across 7 appearances in the 2010-2011 season. And to be fair, he did score in his first start a month after his debut in another League Cup tie, this time against Wolverhampton Wanderers, before even finding the net in the Champions League later that campaign. In a season where United reached their most recent Champions League final, Bebe was in the squad. He wouldn't score against the bigger names that the Red Devils faced along the way, Pep Guardiola's Barcelona, Carlo Ancelotti's Chelsea, or even Schalke, Marseille, Valencia or Rangers, but he did against Bursaspor. His only 90 minutes came in the FA Cup 5th round against non-league Crawley Town. It was his final game for the club, as United toiled to a win thanks to a solitary Wes Brown goal. "If Bebe scores, we're on the pitch," became the sarcastic chant from the Stretford end. And whilst he wouldn't actually leave the club until 2014, he continued to play top-flight European football in every season up until his departure. First came Besiktas and 4 goalless appearances, then a return to the Primera Liga and Rio Ave, where he netted 2 in 19 before a far more promising time at Paços de Ferreira, which finally earned him a permanent move, equally as gobsmacking, this time to Benfica. But unfortunately for Bebe, he's never been able to recreate the scoring form of 14 goals in 39 matches for Paços and departed Benfica after just 1 league appearance. Remaining in Iberia, Bebe this time tried his hand over the border in Spain, and this is where he made himself more at home, primarily for clubs of the calibre of Eibar and Rayo Vallecano. It all started with a goalless 18 games for a struggling Cordoba in Spain's top flight before Rayo took him on loan, and were rewarded, but just with a minuscule 3 goals in 37 games. Only since 2016 had Bebe's career strayed away from the volatility that had previously plagued not only his professional career, but also his adult life. 3 years at Eibar saw 3 more La Liga goals before he returned to Rayo Vallecano, where he's remained ever since, and continues to sporadically play as a squad member at a club that punches significantly over its weight. And to be fair, you could say the same for Bebe. When you look at his early life, as well as his career before Manchester United, you can't help but feel that the rhetoric around him being a complete flop at United is somewhat overdone. And once you factor in the context and circumstances, his career actually seems pretty impressive compared to the average person.